246, that's the number of mass shootings that we've had in the United States. That is just baffling to me. And then to also read that more than half of Americans feel like Congress, our leaders, our political leaders, cannot bring this under control. What is happening with us as Americans? What's happening with us as people who use a currency that says, "In God we trust"? And then why is there such apathy among the citizens of the United States of America? My guest tonight is Stephanie Mickle. Stephanie has written a book called Follow the Leader, but she has also worked for many years in Washington, D.C., supporting the efforts of the legislature in Washington. She's been on Capitol Hill and considered as a Washington insider, seeing the ins and outs of what goes on in Washington, D.C. She is our guest tonight, and I'm very, very excited for you to be able to hear what Stephanie has to say. She is our guest on Sisters of Wellness. I do hope that you will stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sisters of Wellness. Stephanie Mickle is our guest. She's an attorney. She's the author of the book, Follow the Leader. Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Stephanie, you have stepped away from Washington, but you were there for many, many years. And as you're watching what's happening in our country, in our community, as I, excuse me, gave that statistic about the number of mass shootings that are happening, that apparently is causing some people to just feel like there's nothing that can be done. What do you say to them?
It's extremely disheartening. It is frustrating at levels that I don't even think you can really fully put into words. There are so many people who from week to week open the newspaper, turn on the television, check their feeds, and hear about shootings. And hear about the amount of gun violence that's happening in our country. I remember when I was on Capitol Hill, part of my legislative portfolio issues I was responsible for was the Second Amendment. And at the time that I was responsible for the Second Amendment, the Sandy Hook shooting happened. And of course, everybody remembers the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. We remember Columbine. We remember Parkland. We remember all of these different school shootings, all these different community shootings that happened. And every time something would happen, there would be all of this talk and chatter around, we have to do something. We have to curb gun violence. We have to crack down on the amount of assault rifles, the amount of ammunition that's available. Gabrielle Giffords was shot. A member of Congress was shot. Surely Congress is going to do something now. But it did. A federal judge was shot. Another judge was killed. Judge's son was killed. I mean, they're just on and on and on and on and on. And we all say, well, what's going to be the point at which people decide that they've had enough? And I think that's why people are so tired now, that they don't even believe that there is the political will for there to be change. But what I want to say is this, and I know this from working in the political space for many, many years, and certainly on Capitol Hill for a number of years, is that the only way that the needle will move, the only way that change will happen is if it happens at a grassroots level. Congress moves when they get enough phone calls, enough letters, enough complaints. It's not that they move when, there's something, not always, occasionally, but most of the times it takes a lot of political push and a lot of changes. And then the other issue with regards to the amount of gun violence is, quite frankly, the NRA, the lobbyists that, fund campaigns, they fund all kinds of things to prevent legislation from cracking down on the types of weapons that are not designed for hunting. They're not designed for anything other than, mass killings or military use. But they're very easily accessible and available um, to everyday people now.
Stephanie, you said you worked on the Second Amendment. You worked on legislation that involved the Second Amendment. Would you please explain to everyone exactly what the Second Amendment says as it relates to maintaining a well regulated militia?
Militia. Yes. So initially, when the Second Amendment was written and drafted, it was intended for the purpose. The United States did not have a Department of Defense. We did not have the military that we have now. We basically had people who lived in their homes and who got together and became a militia, became an army for the purpose of fighting off the British, for the purpose of fighting off potential tribal invasions from Native Americans who felt like they were trespassing, and they were, but that's the story for another day. And so that was the initial intent. It has morphed into, and actually, before I go to the morphing, there's another step in between. So what ended up happening was people, as people settled different parts of the country, they lived in rural areas. They needed to defend themselves from wild animals. They needed to defend themselves from other people who may have meant them no good. And so they needed to bear arms for that purpose. I do not believe it was contemplated, assault rifles were contemplated, or mass shootings were contemplated, or all kinds of other things. I also believe it was intended and should be intended, even in today's policy, that there's adequate security for the spaces that people function and live their lives, live, play, and work, so that they can have the confidence that they'll be safe as they go about their day.
And to say that you have a right to have a weapon that's clearly not designed for deer hunting season.
Right.
Uh,
Right. Yeah, right. There are not a lot of reasons. And I'm a new, well, back up. When I worked in the Senate, we were trained by our defense agencies on how each of these weapons operated. And the thinking was, if you are a staffer, I'm an attorney, you need to understand exactly how this weapon works so that you are not creating legislation in ignorance, right? You're not drafting things that you want your boss to go and file in ignorance. And so we had to take lessons and training, and we were exposed to different types of rifles and different types of handguns and so forth. And after my very first time firing a gun, this day of spending the whole day with sharpshooters, I'm talking about people who, this is what they do. They know it like the back of their hand. They have been highly, highly trained in tactical situations. I knew there is no way that an assault rifle could be, one, is heavy, two, there's a lot of kickback that's involved in it, meaning it kind of bumps your body. So you have to be really sure that this is what you want to be wielding at people, and really understand that what's going to happen is a whole lot of ammunition is coming out the other end and flying a lot of different directions, many of which you cannot control.
right.
So it's one thing if you have, we talked about this in law school, crimes of passion, where, a husband and a wife get into it, and then somebody grabs a gun, and the next thing you know, somebody's dead. That's not what this is. These are very intentionally designed, intentionally used weapons that have no other benefit other than, because even if you went to a range and tried for target practice with an assault rifle is only going to just put a bunch of holes in the wall, and they're not going to all go in the same spot.
Well, you mentioned grassroots efforts are needed, and Moms Demand Action is one of the groups. I participated in an event this past weekend, along with an event that was sponsored by Mama's Group, which is Faye Williams here in this community, and those things were happening across the country, people wearing orange. in honor of the young
My
lady that was
orange
killed.
today.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
killed 2 weeks after participating in the parade of then President Barack Obama. Um, Yet we see all of this and we know all of this. Yet we continue on, and there's a whole generation of children who are now living in this normality
Mhm.
of you go to school, you could get shot. Let's just say it.
Mhm.
Anytime you go to school, you could
Mhm.
get shot and
Mhm.
be killed.
Mhm.
Families
Uh,
are having to have that conversation with their children. Not make sure you eat your peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but you may be
mhm.
killed. And you talked about you all being prepared. I don't think people are really grasping this next the young people that are being impacted by this and how this stress is impacting them physically and mentally.
So there's so much in what you just outlined. We in the United States have had the luxury of taking for granted not being in the middle of a war. Most of us,
Official war.
an official war, right? In
Yeah,
inner cities where there's a lot of gang violence, those kids have maybe not in the classroom. The school was a safe space for them,
right.
but certainly on the walk home, they knew and know that there is a likelihood that they might not get home safely, or that a bullet might fly through the window of their home. And so for children around the world who grew up in war-torn areas, I'm thinking Syria, I'm thinking certain parts of Africa, I'm thinking certain parts of the Middle East where there's constant fighting,
Hmm.
they understand at a psychological level what our children are now being exposed to. It's just that they didn't have video games teaching them a altered version of what this looks like, right? They
Hmm.
just knew from reality that Mr. So and so, who owned the bakery down the street, is no longer here because he got shot, or or Mr. So and so's daughter got shot, or whatever it is. And so, I think that we in the United States have been really sheltered for a long time. That's not to say that now it's our turn. What I mean is that we, as the grown-ups in the room, hopefully need to be thinking about how can we continue to protect our children? How can we, bring this back into a reasonable space wherein children do not have to do safety drills at school, and their teachers don't have to be faced with the question of, which are already overburdened and underpaid because they have so many other things that they're dealing with in a classroom. Now I have to figure out an active shooter situation, and what do I need to do?
Yeah, we used to only have fire drills.
Right. Fire drills. And that was stop, drop, and roll. Go outside and, find your teacher, that type of thing. No.
Right,
Mm-mm.
right. And parents are now having, as I said, having to have this very, very tough conversation.
Tough
It's
conversations, have drop their children off with a lot of angst, buy their children clear backpacks to come to school, know that their children have to go through metal detectors. And something else I wanted to mention is one of the bills that I worked on right after Sandy Hook was a 3D printer gun bill, where you can create a gun that can evade a metal detector with these certain types of printers. And, there were concerns that people would use those types of weapons to evade metal detectors. And so they have been banned in the United States. The ban expired, and so we got the ban reinstituted. But that should have been a no-brainer, and we still had to work really hard to get that reinstituted.
Stephanie Mickle, who has written the book, Follow the Leader, where you are encouraging. Yeah, there you go. There it is.
There you go.
Yeah, beautiful picture there, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Follow the Leader is not doing anything except encouraging people to look to themselves and find the leader in themselves. Why do you think we've not talked more about that? Or why is it that you think that people don't feel like they have what it takes to lead?
So I think there's a lot of noise and chatter, right? So with the 24-hour news cycle, with the internet, with social media, there's a lot of noise out there. And it really makes it hard to hear your own voice, right? If you're always watching the news, you're always watching television, you're always reading things online or looking at other people's posts, it can really obscure your own voice and vision of yourself and where you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to lead. I think we all have the ability to be leaders. That doesn't mean that we all lead in the same way. And a lot of what I emphasize in my book is about figuring out how you best fit in. What is your best way of fitting in? And for some people, that's running for office. For other people, that's more behind the scenes. For other people, that's grassroots. And, I have been all three at different times. And except running for office, I have not done that. Although I've been asked many times to consider
I think
it.
you should.
See, here's another one. But yeah, there's so many ways to impact society, to make changes for the better. I know we're probably going to talk about a few other topics, but I do want to say this about gun violence. I personally feel, as somebody who has spent a lot of hours thinking about the policy and the legislation, that if we cannot make the needle move, if we cannot get Congress to change the laws around certain types of weapons and access, then at a minimum, we need to ramp up security everywhere, at schools, at hospitals, at courthouses, at parking garages, at grocery stores, you name it. We need to ramp up security a lot. I don't mean just a metal detector or a security guard who doesn't even have a gun himself. I mean, really ramp it up so that there's a really clear signal to both copycat shooters and to the mentally ill in the first place that this is not going to go well. You are not going to go down in history. You're not going to get the death by cop emblem for all eternity. No, this is going to go badly for you and your family. And that's the other part of it I think that we need to do, is I think we need to, for kids who are under 18, their parents need to be prosecuted. I mean, there needs to be accountability beyond the shooter, because there may not be the mental capacity to fully understand the consequences of your actions when your brain is not fully formed. And there's tons of data from the medical community on brain formation.
Absolutely. Stephanie Mickle is an attorney and an author. She was legal counsel for Senator Bill Nelson from Florida. Stephanie, and by the way, making history as general counsel in Washington, D.C. for a senator. Were you like the first or second African American?
But there were two of us in different offices, yes, at the same time.
Yeah. How many are there now, you think? Has it improved any?
Oh, it hasn't improved much. There's the Center for the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies tracks the number of senior staffers in Congress, and they aggregate it for all members of Congress, and then they pull out the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus members, African American members, who then have African American senior staff. And so no, there's not a lot. And by not a lot, I mean, I want to say when I was in Congress, in the Senate, there was 100 senators. Mm-hmm. There's probably 5 of us total that were considered senior staff. And that's every job: communications director, chief of staff, general counsels, everybody.
Not even the percentage that represents the number of African Americans living in the United States.
Not even close. Not even close.
You know, that would be an improvement if it just reflected that.
It absolutely would be. But if you stop, for your viewers, there's only been, I believe it's 11 African American senators in the history of the United States at all. And 4 of them came through when I was in the Senate. So it was a very dry stretch for a long time. And then,
Amazing. That's amazing.
Reconstruction brought in a couple, and then when Reconstruction ended, it got completely white again, and then it ramped back up, I think, with Senator Brooke back in the early 70s.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We have so many organizations of color that you would think that we would have seen more African Americans running, more African Americans even participating in processes that would make sure that the lines that are drawn intentionally to um, dilute the African American vote, that there would be more involvement to rectify that. We have a comment, a question from LinkedIn. Thank you, Dr. Danielle Schutz. I'm a school administrator. How do I get involved beyond the scope of my school and my district?
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Schutz. This is my favorite kind of question because there's
Yeah.
lots of ways that you can, beyond, like you said, your professional role. One way to get involved is to attend council meetings in your local community. Hear the discussions that are going on, because even though they're separate and apart from the school board, the concerns of families are coming up there. Another way that you can get involved, and I'm going to give you a few different options so that you can decide which one makes the most sense for you. Another way that you can get involved is to vote and make sure that you're voting for the school people that sit on the school board, that you're helping to educate others. Something else that another way that you can get involved is to be more vocal in your circles, whether that's community organizations, your church, other places that you frequent, and let them know what's going on, because people take for granted that everybody has the same amount of information about a topic. But if, say, for example, if I don't have school-age children, I might not know, but I might be really concerned about it, and I might be able to provide support and interest and input in rectifying a concern that you brought to my attention or you brought to our organization's attention. So don't be shy about talking about, hey, I understand the school board is considering increasing class size, for example. I want to share with you all what are some of the issues with regards to increasing class size. Some people may not even know what that means or why that is even important to have a certain number of students in the classroom. So, take your expertise and use it to educate the peoples in your circle. And then, take it from there. You never know where it will lead, but people will definitely start to see you as a leader, a thought leader in that space. And that's a secondary benefit to the primary benefit of making sure your community understands what's happening with the schools.
Let me tell you, I see these things and I hear these things and I feel um, the frustration of people, and then I see the paralysis of people going on about their day-to-day lives and just waiting for the next one to happen. I worked for the Department of Transportation in Tennessee, and we had 5 people shot that day, one day that at work, and we had 13 live trucks from across the country. What year was that? That was early 2000. We had 13 live trucks with 5 people shot, 3 dead. And the fact that here we are in 2022, this was a workplace shooting, so you talk about increasing security. I don't know that we can get enough security. This man came to work to see his wife. So who was going to stop him at the door?
Right.
So when we talk about that America only makes up 5% of the world population, and we have more than 31% of the mass shootings that happen in the world. We have 25% of the world's population incarcerated, yet we're only 5% of the world population. Stephanie Mickle, do you see Um, how do we work toward rectifying this brokenness of this country that we hail as the greatest country in the world?
Same way you fix any problem, you have to be honest with yourself to start, right?
Yeah.
And we are not the greatest country in the world anymore. And that's unfortunate. I mean, you're talking to somebody who's committed her life to public service and my career. But we're not the greatest country in the world. We are superior in certain metrics, but in others, we're doing really badly. And if COVID taught us nothing else, is that we were doing really badly. And we are not as great as we think we are. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that we have problems, that we have stuff we need to work on, that we need to get our stuff together, because the world sees it. They know we have a gun problem. They know we have a COVID problem. They know we have other issues. They know we have a multi-trillion dollar debt problem. We know it too, but we just continue to walk around like, oh, we don't have we're good. We're better than everybody else. We're telling ourselves. Now, we have the best military in the world. That's fact. Our military is second to none.
Mm-hmm.
But the military can't do everything. And it's not fair of us to put it all on them. Think about it this way. Say you had a big brother and everybody in the neighborhood was scared of your big brother because they knew your big brother would kick everybody else's butt, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that an excuse for you to go around and talk crap to everybody and to do, to not clean up your room and to not take care of your neighbor and to, not feed the dog? No, you still got to do those things. Your big brother is just there to make sure everything is going to go the way it needs to go. But it's not your big brother's responsibility to clean up all your messes. It's just not. That's irresponsible on our part as Americans.
And as Dr. Danielle asking the question, how is it that you, in this book that you've written, and are you finding that there are more people, there are organizations that are encouraging women to run for office? And as you pointed out, running for office is not the only way to do it. You don't have to run
Yes.
for office because people can very easily say that is simply not for me at all. But living here in this country is for you.
Right,
So
right.
how do we?
Living here is for you.
Yeah.
Right. Caring about your children, caring about your neighborhood, caring about your healthcare system, caring about our environment, caring about the lake down the road from your house. All of those things are absolutely for you and your responsibility. Somebody else, it's not somebody else's responsibility, it's your responsibility. And I think, that emphasis on looking at ways that you can make a difference. And I'm not talking about a major difference. I'm not talking about passing legislation on Capitol Hill, because that's a monumental task. That takes hundreds of thousands of things going right at the same time and lots of organizations. But you can start a group. You can join a group that's already in existence. You can look for ways to, if it weren't for people like Mothers Against Drunk Drivers back in the 70s, we wouldn't have the drunk driving laws that we have now. But they did not give up. They were very determined women. Most of them didn't have any political experience at all. And they just said, enough is enough. And we're not going to let up. We're not going to give out, give our power away to people because they don't want to hear about it. No, we're just going to keep talking about it. And we're going to keep showing up. We're going to keep raising money. We're going to keep voting until you listen.
Stephanie has written a book called Follow the Leader, and her contact information is there below. Thank you to everybody who's watching. And on LinkedIn, we have another comment from Terry Bailey. Terry said, I've heard many people say they are numb. We can never get weary of the fight, but sometimes we get tired. We do get tired. Thank you for your work, sisters.
Yes, yes, yes. We do get tired. And Uvalde, like Sandy Hook, was such a heart-wrenching for everybody, I think. So it just breaks your heart into a million pieces to see all those little babies.
Yeah.
And the adults, the cops, the adults, the teachers, everybody just kind of, in a space of being paralyzed
Yeah.
because of the pain and the horror of the situation. And so, yeah, that should be enough to say, you know what, I'm never going to put anybody through this again. I'm going to do whatever I have to do personally to never let anybody else's family go through this.
And so many people today that I'm hearing are saying, I don't even watch the news anymore. So the fact that there were 246 mass shootings,
Hmm.
just think of the percentage of people who don't even know that that took place. We just know that there are a lot of shootings in the United States of America. People are not reading the newspaper. And all of you who are watching, who have influence on social media or on your block, in your home, with your families, I think that, as you have pointed out, Stephanie, that is the only way that this is going to change. But we must hold those people accountable who put themselves in leadership roles. We must hold them accountable. And, um, stop watching things that use killing other humans as a form of entertainment.
Absolutely. I mean, what is the tipping point, right? Like, I don't know if people have, used that expression much anymore, but like, where's the point where everything tips over the edge? Are we talking 200 shootings? Are we talking about 20 shootings? Are we talking about this type of shooting versus that type of shooting? And I'm only saying that not to make light of it, but to say, listen, what's each of us needs to think about what is our tipping point? Like, where do we get to the place where we're like, I cannot even fathom another one of these. And yeah, you can turn the television off. That's the same thing as putting a pillow over your head or sticking your
Don't
head
get
in.
don't get on the scale. You have, as long
Right,
as I
is
don't
that
weigh
not getting
myself, I
on
haven't
the
gained weight.
scale? No. Right, it's but even if you don't watch the daily news, which sometimes can sensationalize a lot of this and desensitize people from what they're seeing, that doesn't change the numbers, the data. I'm a big data person. I think, people lie, but numbers don't. And, that's the type of thing where it's good for you to think about how is it that I can, even if you stop the one mass shooting in your community, that's plenty. That's plenty, right?
Yeah, Stephanie, wow, we didn't get off that topic of shootings, but that's the big thing. And there's so many other things that I would love to chat with you about. And we will again, because I want to do
Mhm.
this again with you because, um, you know, we have to take time to catch our breath. We
Yes.
have to take time to breathe, to inhale and to exhale. We haven't talked about mental health, period, but then mental health in the African American community as people are having to deal with the loss of loved ones from the
Hmm.
pandemic
Hmm.
to these shootings that are taking place to just the fear
Hmm.
of when
Suicide.
I go to church.
Hmm.
Am I safe when I go to church? Am
Listen,
I safe when I go to the grocery store? Am I safe if I want to attend any kind of public gathering? We just had, where was that shooting where somebody, Philadelphia? Was that just last night or over the weekend?
that was over the weekend. That was on Sunday. And in fact, the Philadelphia shooting and then the Chattanooga shooting, and
Chattanooga.
then there was one in South Carolina. There was three different shootings, mass shootings over the weekend. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm talking about this from a policy perspective, but I went to the gym over the weekend. I went to church over the weekend. I went shopping over the weekend, and I was looking over my shoulder,
Yeah,
and I mean, that's not how we're the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's not freedom.
yeah,
Uh-uh.
yeah. Um, I know every time I go out, it's the same way. And because we're all feeling it,
Mhm.
and we're all feeling it, but we're not being taught about how this stress is impacting our bodies. Glad to hear you went to the gym. We all have to do things that will help us relieve the tension of this stress. This morning, I talked about the scripture in Zephaniah where it says that the Lord sings over us. And so, in those moments when you're feeling uncomfortable, um, just reflect on the goodness of the Creator. And then it also says, when my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then I will heal the land. And Lord knows we need healing
Mhm.
from the top to the bottom. Stephanie, I really appreciate you being here. You're about to say something. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I was listening to what you were saying and thinking about the beauty of those scriptures. It also says, and turn from your wicked ways, humble
Thank
yourself,
you.
turn from your wicked ways. So
Thank you.
there's two other responsibilities in that scripture, and I think that's something that we as humans struggle with sometimes.
Turn from your wicked ways. Stephanie's book, Follow the Leader, encouraging all of us to get involved in every way that we can. We
Mhm.
don't have the option today of sitting idly by. We are in a place in this country, we are in a moment in the history of the United States of America where we need all hands on deck.
Absolutely, we do. We absolutely do. And yeah, we don't have the luxury of sitting idly by. This is not, you know, I hear that. I've heard that one statement made about every single bill under the sun. We don't have the luxury of sitting by and letting, this tax, loophole go unchecked. This is not that. We're talking life or death, right? So you talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's at the bottom. That's security and safety. If we don't have that, there's no point talking about, what's inflation going to do or what's going to happen in Ukraine.
Yeah, I've looked at that and thought we need to be pulling in funding
Mm-hmm.
and trying to protect our streets and get this stuff under control.
Yeah.
To all of those who are currently involved, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you, Stephanie, for what you're doing to continue to encourage us to be involved. And, um, I wanted to call you, uh, you know, it would have been interesting for us to sit and watch January 6th as it unfolded on a third screen here. I cannot imagine what you were feeling watching places, watching the halls that you walked through for years, and to see that happening. I cannot imagine what that was like for you.
It was and there was it was a quite a moment. I heard it. I was driving home, so I heard it on the radio first before I saw it on television. So I heard it unfolding, and I thought, I remember, the amount of security that's on Capitol Hill. At least they used to be on Capitol Hill. It's probably back now, but there was tons of security. I was somebody who worked late a lot, and I never questioned whether I was safe because there was all this, security around. And I'm talking about highly trained. You don't get to be Capitol Police with, 6 months out of the police academy. It doesn't work like that. You've got to have really good training. Most of them have military training and or have come from a large police department. And so, I was really hurt by it also emotionally because that was that was like our sanctuary. It's the height of our government. It's in my photos. The Capitol is in my photos because
Right.
it's a big deal. This represents our country to the world. And what we saw unfold was people who are part of our country attack what this symbol means. This wasn't even a foreign invasion. This was us doing it to ourselves, a self-inflicted wound that was created by people who did not want to respect the rule of law. I take that stuff very personally. I hate that, because like me, myself, an attorney, like most people, we're sworn to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that includes people who decide that they want to attack the Capitol and try to overthrow an election. And I understand that they say they were on a field trip, they were on this, that. That's not true. That's completely, patently false. And so, I want to, I hope that they are going to be held fully accountable. I have not been impressed with the level of response that our government has taken Yes, they've arrested some people, and yes, a few people have been prosecuted, but not at the level of that we've seen. And I know they just indicted the Proud Boys today for seditious conspiracy, and that's a start. But 5 people, that was not a five person operation that happened.
No, no, no. Stephanie, we could do a whole show on that, and perhaps we
Well,
will.
I'm happy to come back anytime you want to talk about any of these issues. You just let me know.
I will. I will. Thank you very much. This is Sisters of Wellness. We started this show because we wanted to answer that scripture in Titus that said older women are to teach younger women, and so we, as the givers of life, we have a huge stake in our babies dying, whether they are uh, 3 years old or the older people that died at that grocery store. They
Yeah.
still are here because women gave birth. And I just believe, Stephanie, that the only answer that there is in this country is that for women to come together and stand together to protect these lives that women created. That's what
Right.
I think.
I think so. And I think that one of the things that I do talk about in the book is the way that women solve problems is is fundamentally different than the way that men do. And I'm not talking about what you learn in business school or law school. I'm talking about sort of you take 3 little girls and put them on the playground, you take 3 little boys and put them on the playground, and you see what they watch what they do, how they
Mhm.
resolve issues. It's different. And
Yes.
so it's different. And I think those skills can be brought to bear and are brought to bear often by women who are brought in to turn around a failing company. I'm thinking about Ursula Burns and women who are brought in for other reasons. And so, to fix problems because it's what we do. We're used to cooking and cleaning and taking care of the kids and taking care of the husband and working 40 hours. I mean, this is just what we do. And we don't have time to kind of fall apart in the middle of it. And I'm not talking about self care. I mean, just sort of we understand what the skill set that's necessary to take care of the things that are important. And I think that absolutely um, parallels really well with what happens in politics because you don't get anything passed by yourself. And, people can say, "Oh yeah, I introduced Bill 123," but if I introduce Bill 123, I still need 50 other votes. I
Mhm.
still need 60 other votes. I still need this organization and that organization and this, trade group and that trade group all saying, this is important to us. Please go ahead and do this. I mean, the reason that Obamacare got passed, the Affordable Care Act got passed, was through years of effort. And Obama and Senator Ted Kennedy were able to get it over the goal line, but there was a lot of people involved in that. And so, it takes a team effort. We are stronger together. You see a lot of
Yes.
t-shirts that say better together, stronger together. That's absolutely true. And it's really true in politics.
Yeah, and so I'm looking forward to speaking with you again. I'm looking forward to hearing more from our audience who have been watching, and I do really appreciate it so much. And thank you. Look, we didn't get to talk about Black media and us telling our stories. We got to come back and talk about that and your involvement with the media company in Tallahassee. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to book
There's
another date.
lots more that we definitely we didn't get to talk about gas prices and what's going to happen this summer. So yeah, there's so many things to talk about, and then certainly really appreciate your show's emphasis on women and on how we can older women. I'm one of those now
I
teaching.
know that's what happened.
Yeah, look,
I
yeah,
started
right.
thinking about it,
It's
like
better than the other option. That's for sure. God is good.
I think I'm an older woman now.
Yeah,
Woo.
I am too. Yeah, yeah, that's something.
Hey, tell your mother I said hello.
I will. I
All
will.
right. I look forward to us reconnecting again, Stephanie.
Great. Thank you so much, Pamela, for having me. And thank you to your audience for the questions. Really appreciate those.
And Stephanie's book, Follow the Leader. You can contact Stephanie. There is her information there for
Mhm.
Facebook, for Instagram. and for LinkedIn. We do appreciate all of you watching, whether you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube. If you're watching our YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe so you can find out when we have more great content, great shows like the one that we have enjoyed over the last 44 minutes. I thank you. Look forward to seeing you all on Thursday for the Timbuktu Report with Dr. Rick Stevenson. In the meantime, I'm Pamela Marshall at the Wellness Radio TV and at the Wellness Radio TV podcast. Remember, there is healing at the well. Inhale and exhale and enjoy the moment. We'll see you next time. Bye bye.